The story begins with a plane fighting through a violent storm. Our main character, a man named Jack, is sitting calmly in the airplane bathroom when suddenly the cabin pressure drops. The toilet door flies open and a fire breaks out in the cargo hold, triggering a dangerous explosion. The pilot rushes Jack back to his seat because an emergency water landing is unavoidable. He hands Jack a life raft and tells him to buckle up as the plane plunges downward. With the ocean rushing up fast, Jack realizes his girlfriend's pocket watch has fallen to the floor. The pilot shouts at him to grab his life jacket, but it is on the wrong side. Jack unbuckles his seatbelt and staggers toward the watch. The moment he picks it up, the plane's angle shifts violently and he cannot move. The pilot spots him out of his seat and unbuckles his own belt to help, taking a brutal hit in the process. The pilot manages to bring the plane down on the water's surface, but the rough landing floods the cabin instantly. Ironically, Jack's unbuckled seatbelt is the very thing that saves him from being pinned. The fuselage tears open and water pours in. Jack grabs the inflatable life raft and pulls the cord, but it gets tangled in the sinking wreckage and begins dragging him under. Then the rope snaps and the raft shoots to the surface, pulling Jack up with it and out of death's reach. He claws his way onto the raft with his last strength and holds on desperately. But the raft drifts toward a still spinning engine. He squeezes his eyes shut. The engine explodes and the shock wave hurls him back into the water. The entire plane sinks in one final blast. Then the full force of the storm hits him, massive waves crashing over him one after another, while he holds the raft rope with both hands and prays. Eventually the raft deflates against sharp rocks. He has reached land. He drags himself and the raft ashore with his final reserves of strength. When morning sunlight hits his face, he realizes he is alive, washed up on a small deserted island. But surviving the crash is only the beginning. He walks the beach collecting scattered debris from the wreck, calling out for any other survivors. Only silence answers him. The island does not appear on any map. He is completely alone. He writes help in large letters on the sand and waits for nightfall, watching the horizon for any passing vessel. As darkness settles, the sounds of the jungle begin to close in around him, and fear replaces whatever hope he had left. The next morning, he builds a rough shelter from gathered materials and sorts through whatever the wreckage has left behind. The only thing of personal value he has is the pocket watch his girlfriend had given him before he left. Her name was Claire. She had handed it to him before her business trip and made him promise that when she returned at Christmas they would finally get married. The crash ended that promise mid-sentence. Back home, his family has already begun grieving, assuming he died in the wreck. But Jack refuses to die. The problem is that on this empty island even food and water are serious challenges, and nobody knows how long he can hold on. Several company parcels have washed ashore with him. He refuses to open them. Even stranded on an unknown island, he will not break the trust of the people waiting for those deliveries. The help message he wrote has already been erased by the tide. He writes it again with broken wood. Slowly, his determination to survive grows harder and more urgent. He knows the only way out is to stay alive long enough to find one. But the island offers almost nothing edible beyond hard coconuts, and he has nothing to crack them open with. He finds a sharp rock, smashes one open and drinks the water inside like it is the finest thing he has ever tasted. Still not satisfied with just coconuts, he decides to explore the island properly. The rocky terrain shreds his feet, so he cuts his trouser fabric, stuffs leaves inside, and fashions a rough pair of shoes. He climbs to the highest point of the island and finds nothing but ocean in every direction. He is truly alone. Then something catches his eye in the distance. He runs toward it, hoping to find another survivor. When he turns the figure over, he discovers it is a pilot who has been dead for a long time. He carefully pulls the body to shore and goes through the belongings, finding a usable pair of boots, a torch that still works, and a worn-out wallet. He digs a grave, buries the pilot properly, and carves the date of death into a rock. That evening, sitting on the beach staring at the boots, Jack has a thought that stops him cold. The next person buried on this island might be him. That night he cannot sleep. He understands clearly that sitting still waiting for rescue is just slow death. The next day he begins learning to actually survive. He collects morning dew from leaves into a coconut shell for drinking water. He sharpens a stick into a spear for fishing. None of it works particularly well, but the constant effort keeps despair from taking over completely. That same night, while answering nature's call, he spots a light on the horizon. He screams and waves the torch frantically, but the distance is too great. The light fades and disappears. He is left burning with rage and helplessness. At sunrise, he grabs the damaged raft and charges into the waves toward where that ship had been. He tries again and again, but the ocean throws him back every single time. He keeps going until a sharp underwater rock tears into his thigh and leaves him bleeding badly. He drags himself back to shore in terrible shape. That evening, a storm rolls in, heavy rain soaking everything. He can only use the raft to cover the company parcels. He finds a small cave, drinks a few mouthfuls of dirty rainwater to stay conscious, and finally collapses from exhaustion. The torch battery dies in the dark beside him. He wakes the next day in sharp pain. His leg wound is showing signs of infection. Staying alive now means setting aside his principles. He opens the parcels. Inside, he finds a dozen videotapes, a decorated volleyball, a long, elegant dress, and a pair of ice skates. He leaves one parcel sealed either to preserve hope or to keep something that still belongs entirely to the future. He presses the packing foam against his wound as a makeshift bandage, uses the skate laces as dressing, and immediately recognizes the skate blades as his most valuable tools. He cuts the black netting from the dress and weaves a simple fishing net. Days later, he eats a proper meal for the first time. Then he decides to cook it. He spends an entire day and night trying to make fire by rubbing sticks together. His hands blister and bleed, and still nothing comes. The frustration of 4 years of accumulated pain and failure finally erupts. He screams at the empty sky. Then he goes quiet. He looks down and notices the volleyball sitting nearby, the one with the imprint of his bloody hand on it. Something shifts in his mind. Using his saliva, he turns the handprint into a face, adding 2 eyes and a faint smile. The ball looks almost human. He names it Wilson and keeps it close. Having something to talk to, even a volleyball, changes something inside him. With Wilson watching, he goes back to the sticks. This time a spark catches. Then a flame. He shouts with joy like a man who has just won a war. The fire means cooked food and visible signal smoke at night. That evening, sitting by the flames eating his catch, he talks to Wilson about the math of his situation. He is more than 4,000 miles from any shipping lane. The odds of being found are essentially zero. But he keeps going anyway. Raw food and poor hygiene eventually infect one of his teeth. The pain becomes unbearable. Jack takes a skate blade, positions it against the bad tooth, picks up a rock, and without letting himself think about it, he strikes. One sharp blow. Done. 4 years pass. Jack is unrecognizable, gaunt, weathered, and wild-looking. His fishing skills have become expert, but his eyes have gone flat. He no longer expects rescue. Every day alive is just another day of being alone. Then a piece of sheet metal washes up against a rock. When the sea breeze catches it and sends it skidding across the ground, something clicks in his brain. That curved surface could cut through water. If he could rig it as a sail, he might actually have a fighting chance of getting off this island on his own. The idea arrives with such force that he does not wait another moment. He spends weeks building a raft from branches, jungle rope, and strips of videotape. As the work nears completion, his mental state begins to fray. He starts to feel that Wilson disapproves of him leaving. He snaps at the ball one night in genuine anger, kicks it away into the dark, and lies there fuming. Then the guilt sets in. He goes out into the night and finds it, repaints the face carefully, and holds it close. They are leaving together. The raft is finished. He carves his record into a rock, more than 10,000 days stranded, and waits for the right wind. When it comes, he pushes the raft into the surf and sets off with Wilson lashed to the side. The open ocean is brutal. Wave after wave nearly capsizes him. Each time he survives, he feels the pull toward home grow stronger. When he looks back and sees the island shrinking behind him, the feeling is complicated grief mixed with disbelief that he is actually free. Then another massive storm hits. It is the worst night of the entire journey. Rain blinds him. Waves swallow the raft whole and spit it back out. He holds on and does nothing else. When morning comes and the storm has passed, he discovers his raft is badly damaged. And then he notices Wilson is gone. The rope has loosened in the night and the ball has drifted away. Jack dives into the ocean and swims after it. But the gap is too wide and the water too terrifying beneath him. He looks back at the raft. He looks forward at Wilson drifting further into open water. He cannot reach both. He treads water in the space between them until Wilson is too far away. He swims back to the raft and watches his only companion of 4 years disappear over the waves. Wilson first is, Wilson first. He says it quietly and means it completely. Now truly alone again on a broken raft with no paddle and no destination, Jack understands with absolute certainty that he is never going home. He throws the paddle into the sea. He decides to simply wait for the ocean to take him. At that exact moment, a horn sounds. He turns with the last movement left in his body and sees an enormous cargo ship bearing down on him. The crew sees him at the same moment. After years of isolation, Jack is pulled aboard and eventually finds himself on a plane heading home. His survival story makes him famous overnight. But none of that matters to him. He only wants to find Claire. When he reaches her door, a man answers. The man tells him quietly that he is Claire's husband. Jack stands there taking it in. He goes inside briefly and sees Claire in tears. He looks at her for a long moment and understands. She waited as long as anyone could. She believed he was dead. He would probably have done the same thing. He lets her go without anger. That night, the company throws a welcome party in his honor. The table is covered in fresh seafood, the same fish and crabs that kept him alive on the island. Sitting in front of all that abundance, he feels a strange distance from the room around him as memories of the island flood back quietly. The next morning, he delivers the one parcel he never opened, the last one he had kept sealed throughout 4 years of desperate survival. He leaves a note with it explaining that whatever was inside had kept him alive. He never opened it and never found out what it contained. And in that small act of kept faith, the story ends.